Hey guys, T-Bull here. Today I got a new type of video for you. It's going to be a replay analysis of user submitted videos. This could potentially turn into a new series if people are interested in it. We'll see how you guys feel about it. So basically how it works, I have a section on the Discord called replay submissions. You can post videos of your games up on that, and then I'll just kind of go over the games and critique them. So the idea for this is to get players of various skill levels, but you can kind of consider it a personalized lesson. A lot of people are always asking me, how can I improve XYZ? If you want to record a video and then put it on there, I'll go through your game and give you tips on everything I can see in that game that you could improve. So the point of this video is not to bash people for bad play or anything like that. It's just people that are trying to learn and get another perspective on their game. So even if I sound like I'm kind of ripping into the gameplay at times, that's not the point of this. It's going to just be, for giving them ideas to improve. And I'm not going to mention the people's names that post them, so it's just kind of an anonymous submission type thing. So hopefully you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments below how you feel, and we'll take it from here. Alright, first up, looks like we got a Mogami game, domination on North. You're in this kind of weird eastern spawn. I don't get what the point of this is. They got, on C, sometimes you'll see two ships below C and then one to the east. Sometimes I see ships sailing to the north of here. I don't like to do that. It doesn't look like you're intending to do that, which is good. The problem is it effectively takes you out of the game for 3-4 minutes. Now if there's another ship down there coming down the opposite way, yeah, you can counter them. But if you just kind of keep it in the back of your mind on this map on the eastern side to keep an eye out for ships that potentially are coming from the east, either through that little gap in between the islands there, or sometimes they'll sail all the way around. So you just kind of got to be aware that that's a possibility. But like you're doing, I would ignore that side and not take yourself out of the game for long periods of time. Now, I noticed you didn't check the team lineups. You should always do that. There's going to be various ships on the other team that you're going to kind of want to watch out for. Cruisers, you want to take a note of like what battleships they potentially have, so you know what you're up against. And just doing a quick mental rundown of the lineups always helps. You can see what kind of DDs they have. I mean, that's one of your main roles as a cruiser, is to counter the DDs. Looks like you're posting up on the side of this island. We'll see how that goes. Typically, how I personally run the Japanese battleships, more of a fluid gameplay style where I'm trying to stay on the move more. If you can get into positions where you're behind cover and undetected, and then you can stop there and fire, that's fine. But, I mean, until just now you were detected, so we'll see how long you're able to maintain your concealment. If you're able to fire without being detected and being subjected to return fire, that's always a good thing that you want to be on the lookout for. But the Mogami, I mean, if you're taking shots, especially if they have battleships that are going to return fire for you, it's not a very sturdy ship, so being stationary makes it a lot easier for ships to shoot at you, whereas if you're kind of sailing full speed, and depending on how you have your ship built, you can kind of dodge those shots, especially the further back you are from the incoming fire. And looks like we have a Nagato here. He's fairly steeply angled. I'd probably just switch over to HE. Japanese cruisers, in my opinion, you want to be shooting HE about, that should be your preferred shot. Each kind of ship has kind of a preferred shell that they should tend to have loaded. AP is fine against like broadside cruisers, potentially against broadside battleships depending on their distance, but the HE, you have a really strong fire chance, really good damage values from that anyways. So again, even this Mayoko is angled, you might get some damage there, but as you see, a lot of either ricochets or you'll get some shatters. Had you had your HE loaded there, you would have scored, potentially 5 to 10k damage and maybe even landed a fire there, so something to keep in mind. Now that he is broadside, you could potentially get some more significant shots, especially if you land a citadel hit, but Unfortunately, now he's been undetected. So everyone on your team's kind of staying back. That's something you need to keep an eye on here in terms of the flow of the game. They are capturing A. It looks to me on the map that they're conceded B. Unfortunately, on your team, nobody's pushing that to kind of capture a free point. But there's not a lot you can really do about that at this point. And again, I mean, you're scoring a little bit of damage here and there. I just feel like HE you'd probably have twice as much damage and potentially, you know, using fires, especially now you have a Benson here. You discharge your shots, just switch over to HE. You can't be shooting AP at this ship. It's not going to be effective at all. You got some resets though, so that's nice. And you are plane spotted, so this is, so far you haven't been punished for it. I mean, these ships haven't really been able to land too many shots, but sometimes stationary Mogami is, especially now, I mean, you're fully broadside, but you have the cover, but let's say they're able to get into an angle where they can shoot you, you could potentially be wiped off the map in one salvo. Again, the Benson, you should just be shooting HE here. Trying to torp him is, or at least get torps in the water is fine. But, I mean, you should be focusing on these HE shots. But in the time it took you to torp that ship, he would be down to about a third of his health left had you been able to land, you know, the majority of them. Looks like he dodged some torps there. And we still have AP loaded. This is turning into a bit of a problem now. This ship should be dead multiple times over at this point just by discharging full HE salvos into him. And now it looks like you're attempting to turn to the other way. I'm too much focus on the torps here. Turning is fine, obviously you miss his entire salvo. Drop the torp indicator, you need to be HE salvos. This ship should not even be, you know, should be long dead at this point. And he should be shooting HE at those cruisers and battleships behind him. There we finally do get switched over to HE, and now we're seeing a lot better damage slash, you know, module damage, fires, stuff like that. So, I mean, getting the torps in the water isn't going to hurt you, but I think you kind of put a little too much reliance on that. You were just too focused on it, and as you saw there, they didn't end up doing any damage to him. Whereas HE salvos, I mean, you can see very clearly you're doing far more damage to that ship with those, so just kind of knowing the target that you're shooting at and the best way to deal with it would go a long way there. Now, HE you got loaded here, let's discharge that, and then you could switch over to AP due to him being fully broadside. You also do have that battleship that's pushed in aggressively, and then now we do have a ship that either sailed through the gap, yeah, looking at his last known position, looked like one of those cruisers snuck through the gap, and now you're in a crossfire situation, which is a major problem for the Mogami due to the fact that it can't be shot in the sides. But getting away from this situation like you're trying to do is probably your best option here at this point. You can't really 1 versus 3 in this game much at all, so good job angling there. The Atlanta's going to be shooting HE at you, so those pointing your broadside at him is much less of a problem than this Myoko here, which is the ship that kind of snuck through the gap there. Yeah, unfortunately you're taking a lot of module damage. Looks like you got a couple, the rear gun's knocked out. This is unfortunate. You do have damage con here. I would repair that at this point. You're really low health. Yeah, if you get a fire it's going to be a problem, but having those turrets knocked out, you know, that's a lot of your firepower that at this point you're probably going to die. I would just be focusing on, if you can kill this Atlanta, cool. If you can start fires, get as much damage as you can. This situation's definitely turned sticky in a hurry for you. And I would also just go ahead and launch that plane. You know, it stays in the air for quite a while. Oh, nice job killing that Atlanta. But even, I mean, this ship is close enough that I would probably shoot it down. But if you're on the verge of death, it's just kind of a courtesy or to your team. You know, they could potentially use that. Now, I don't think it would necessarily be that useful in this situation, so not the end of the world, but something to consider. Might as well fire that plane up when you're about to die. Here you could shoot HE into this guy. You could shoot AP potentially into the upper hull superstructure area. It would be nice if you did draw out his damage count with that first fire, so you can get one more salvo and get some permanent fire. And looks like you do have some torps, so nice. So we do have a flood that's stuck here, and if you're able to get a fire, that would be excellent. I don't think your team really has much of a chance. So you did get a fire there. But all in all, I think the main thing you need to work on is just kind of focusing on your shell selection. That spending that amount of time shooting that destroyer really cost you. You could have potentially moved on to that Atlanta, taken him out quickly, and then kind of had your focus not been on that ship for so long, you could have then figured out that you need to leave because this Nagato was so aggressively pushing you. But I think because your focus was so tied down on that destroyer, it ended up costing you your life. So all in all, that was too bad. You ended up getting quite a bit of damage here, and looks like you're going to get the Nagato with the flood there. So nice job. Alright, looks like we got a match in Haven. Akatsuki, strong side spawn, meaning you're on the side with two sets of three. Again, just check the team roster on the other side. That's going to give you important information, especially as a destroyer. You need to identify if there's radar cruisers, especially if you're planning on zooming through the middle like this. That's extremely important information. You also do want to check the opposing roster for their DDs to see what you could potentially be dueling with, so that could change your approach right off the bat. I'm going through here. This is a capture the base mode, so it's a little less defined on how the teams are going to play here. I don't necessarily have a problem with this. It's a little aggressive, but again, I'd be more comfortable with it if you were sure there weren't like Baltimore's or Indianapolis's or something like that that can cause problems right off the bat. Their Akatsuki, extremely aggressive. Your colors look interesting. This must be like the colorblind mode. Yeah, that's kind of the risk that you were running on the opposite end. But there's a couple maps that have these center, like I call them lake areas, that are just kind of like encircled by islands. And destroyers, you can get away with playing through the middle like that early on, but it is always risky, so you do have to kind of be aware of the risks and then be willing to disengage if the situation arises. And let's see what you're trying to do now, Alex. So we do have a couple of ships spotted to the west, or briefly spotted. Looks like you're going to go over there to scout for them. That's fine. Keep an eye on that blue detection ring. Where they were last sighted, they were right on the edge of it, which means there's a decent chance at least one of them was pushed through, so you can run into trouble coming around corners like this. Now it looks like they're both going the other way, so that wasn't an issue. But destroyers, that's kind of one of the risks you have going around corners tight like this. Yeah, you can catch ships unaware and potentially torp them, but it can also cause problems going the other way. But this is a fine play. You're spotting for your team. Looks like you have one ship behind you supporting, and then yeah, I don't know what the rest of your team looks like. They're just sitting at the base doing nothing. So spotting's a good idea, but you're going to need people to shoot at them. And your other destroyer here is just as unlikely to shoot at them as you are. So I guess looks like you're in a division here. But so I mean, scouting's a very strong part of destroyer play, and it's very helpful. But you got to recognize by looking at the map and just understanding what your team's doing. If they're not going to utilize your spotting, then obviously the importance is diminished, and you can actually run a little bit of a risk to yourself by playing near the enemy. But you are getting torps in the water too, so that's fine. I mean, maybe you don't even care about the spotting, because I'm just watching the screen here. I'm not seeing any shots coming into these guys. So despite the fact that you're keeping these guys lit, it's just, I don't know what your team's doing sitting in the base. But unfortunately, the side that they're spawned on, they're kind of ignoring, which is a problem. I mean, this is the strong side for you guys. So ideally, you want to win this side, as quickly as possible, and then, based on the situation, likely go back and, speaking of the cap, by the way, they do have someone on it, presumably one of their destroyers, so yeah, that's really frustrating. You got two guys just sitting there, and the enemies managed to capture a quarter of your base. Like, what are they doing? And now it's contested, but they are still accruing points. You'll notice, keeping an eye on their score. Just by having a ship in there, even if it's contested, they are getting some points. So that could potentially become a problem later on in the game, depending on if it's a tight match and it comes down to the score. Well, this early kind of mismanagement by these players on your team could potentially cost you the game. Looks like your division's going back to play and kind of defend the base. So often when you're with the division, you're playing with players that you think are better than bottom of the barrel scrub. So it looks like they're doing what your team should be doing, so that's good. And you're still continuing to keep torps in the water now. That Iowa is extremely close to your detection. All he has to do is turn in just a little bit, and there's a strong chance he's kind of looking for you. So, kind of preemptively, you want to get as close to them as possible when you're trying to torp. At least that's how I like to play it. Some people like to play further back. But, you got to really make sure you don't accidentally drift in there, because, Iowa's a very dangerous ship, even if he's got AP loaded, which I presume he does. He can still do quite a bit of damage. Now you're staggering your torps, which is fine. That's not how I normally would like to do them. The times I'll be staggering them like that is if the ship is making a lot of, kind of defensive course changes, or, you're not 100% sure where they're going to go. I mean, it's obviously situational, but here, if he's sailing in a straight line like he is, I feel like if you launched one set on the indicator and then one just maybe slightly to the left and right of it, you could, that way you could cover a little bit wider angle if he's making, speed changes or whatever. But if he stays on the same course, then you're going to hit you're kind of overlapping that middle section that you launched in the indicator. You're going to have a little bit of overlap from the left-hand spread and the right-hand spread. So that's a good way to kind of maximize damage. But I don't know, when you get these single-shot torps going every 30 seconds, it just becomes a lot harder. I mean, torps are kind of random in nature just because you're counting on the enemy doing what you're predicting them to do, and in their mind they're trying to confuse you and do the opposite of what you think they're going to do. So if you get a long line, which that's going to maximize your chances to hit. So, and the Akatsuki is really quick reload. Just often looking at my sheet here, the reload on the torps is just over a minute on my build. So it's that on the Fubuki are really quick reloading torps. So I would just probably recommend launching them all in one unit, but that's personal preference. And while another reason I would say try and line these up. I mean, you're spending a lot of time with this Iowa now, and looking at the team compositions. I mean, both teams are kind of whittling each other down, but the game's getting a little bit long in the tooth, and score-wise, you're down a fair amount. You're roughly a ship's worth because, partially because that ship was able to get points earlier on, and partially just because that's how the score is going. Now the Atlanta does take out one of your Iowas. Looks like it was a reciprocal kill. So, 3 ships to 3. I mean, eventually you're going to get this guy, but it's just how much time is this taking? And again, because you're launching one set of torps at a time, that's a lot easier to dodge than a line of 9 that are evenly spaced. I mean, based on the way this guy's sailing, I feel like you should be hitting him with at least one torp every minute, because you've been doing a really good job of maintaining your distance, staying undetected, harassing him, and he's doing all right to dodge them. But I kind of feel like these torps aren't landing more due to the fact that you're not launching them as one unit. So something to consider. I mean, the pros on how you're doing is you always have torps in the water, so there's always something for him to think about. But there's nobody shooting at him. I mean, that becomes a major problem when you have fire support that they have to deal with at the same time. Because if they're constantly dodging your torps, that means they're changing the angle of their ship, and that allows your support ships to get shots into their sides from time to time. But that's just not happening here. I mean, this entire game I've seen very little supporting fire from your team, which is unfortunate. As this was going on, you opened fire, presumably because he was closing in on your detection circle. You do have a guy on your division spotting for him. You do have smokes available. I would use those. If you're intent on firing on him, you can smoke and get some shots in the water. You do have a spread finally, which this is what I've been talking about the entire time. That looks like it potentially could kill him in one salvo right there. So that's very good right there. Nice torp job. And that decimates him. So we do get the smoke down there. A little bit late. You didn't take really any damage at all, so that didn't end up being a problem, but it could have been for you had he gotten a big salvo off on you, or those secondaries I think could have been going off, especially if he's running Lee. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, what you got to be doing is looking on that mini map and seeing where he's going, and then keep that circle out. You did have room to continue to avoid him, so I think you could have remained undetected just by doing what you were doing. But now we do have their cruiser is on the cap here. You do have 2 destroyers against, I think it was a Vanguard we briefly saw. Pretty full health. And that looks like an Atlanta shooting at your buddy there. This is a sticky situation. You almost need to disregard the Vanguard for the time being and team up on this Atlanta. Atlanta's 1v1 a destroyer. Atlanta's going to win that 19 out of 20 times. He's getting in there to disengage. And it's too bad you had to use your smoke there, because what you need to be doing against this thing is stay out of his radar range and then alternate smokes and shoot at him to get resets and potentially kill him. Looks like you're attempting to kill this Vanguard, which is fine. I like what you did there. It looked like you dropped all 3 on the same line. I was going to say, usually ships that are going back to defend are going to sail fairly straight. They're trying to get there as quickly as possible, so you lined up those torps to multiple strike the same spot. So I'm going to assume he's not going to move. That actually could be a very good salvo there. We'll see what happens. It's just kind of unfortunate that he's moving in between you and that Atlanta right now, because that's the ship you need to be dealing with. You got to get some resets here fairly soon, but you're going to have to work in concert with your other DD to kill that thing. Again, Atlanta's versus 1 DD one-on-one. That's heavily stacked in their favor due to their sonar radar and the fact that they have these really rapidly firing HE shells that absolutely wreck destroyers. So looks like you're absolutely destroying that Vanguard though, so very good job on nice, actually completely one-shot him. He was almost full health. So now you need to I hope to God you're not going to cap. No, just you need to be working with that destroyer. All right. What you're effectively doing right now is conceding the game. You need to understand what's going on in terms of score. He's on the cap. He's accruing points. He's going to wreck your buddy one-on-one. Again, the odds are still in his favor to beat 2 destroyers, but in your mind you're saying, I'm going to get to the cap. Look at the timer. No, this is 100% not going to work, because you're going to kill your destroyer. You don't have time to cap anyways, even if you teleported there. And he's already on there, so now you have to reset it. And now you realize this, but it's too late. He killed your supporting DD. Again, your only chance was to 2-on-1 that guy and get somewhat lucky. Maybe throw a bunch of torps in the water and get him that way. 1-on-1 against this thing, even assuming you could get there in time, which I doubt you will. No, it's unfortunately you just weren't paying attention to how you needed to win there and effectively conceded the game. So I see a lot of players doing what you're trying to do. You need to defend the base way more. That needs to be priority than capping. You're not going to win games capping when the other guy's near the base. It's very rare. You need more ships working in concert to get resets, and then, but you didn't have enough time to get up there anyways and cap, so it didn't matter. But unfortunate for you. That was a pretty good game overall. Really good damage in terms of you had 2 great torp strikes, but just kind of dropped the ball there at the end. So overall pretty good, but just kind of work on your game awareness, and that'll improve quite a bit. Alright, so next up we got a Scharnhorst game. Looks like you're kind of in the mirrored situation from the last game. Again, strong side, but on the north side. So you have your 6 ships bunched up over on the left-hand side, 3 to the right. You got to be kind of careful. You got to keep an eye on your weak side, because if they're going to push in strong and not play defensively, they're going to get wrecked. Normally when I play the weak side, I'll sail into a position where I can spot them and engage them, but then already be turning around and then kite away from them. That'll slow the flow. We've talked about this before, but this Haven map has this counter, or this clockwise circular motion that tends to occur, which, you know, we'll see. I'm guessing that might be what happened. I mean, you're embarking on that here, but usually the ships that are spawn in the south sail around the left-hand side, and the ships to the north sail around the right-hand side, kind of in a big circle. So keep an eye on that weak side. If they crumble very quickly, you're going to have to go back and defend the base, and keep an eye on that. I do have a Mayhan here. Interesting comps. Nobody, I don't believe any of these 3 games, unless I'm mistaken, check the team composition. When you're loading in the game, you have 30 seconds. You're just sitting there. Pull up the team rosters, check. See what's going on. But they have 1 destroyer, you guys have none. So that destroyer that's in the middle there has added value. The fewer destroyers there are in the game, the more valuable they become, just because they're integral for spotting, and they can potentially take out battleships and stuff like that. So you could potentially blind fire here. I was gonna I don't know what spotted you there. It's interesting, but yeah, I mean, fire in there, it was a low percentage shot. You do end up getting spotted. I think it was probably your ship's firing penalty enhanced your view range through the smoke. It was probably that destroyer that spotted you, would be my guess. I didn't see anything in the map that should have spotted you anyways. Did force your damage con because of that. Benson shot some HE rounds and you drew a fire. I don't normally recommend using the damage con on 1 fire, but you're in a situation where you're not likely to take any more hits, so if you manage that damage con reload properly, that shouldn't be too detrimental for you. In other words, when you want to damage con a single fire in a battleship is in a situation like this, where you're going to be not being shot at for a while, and the cooldown's not going to negatively affect you. So that was fine. I mean, good play there. And I don't mind you blind firing that destroyer. It would have been nice if we would have hit him, but low percentage shot. So all in all, not costly, but something to think about. And now just checking the map again while I presume we have a second here. Looks like your weak side team is aggressively pushing into their strong side team. Their strong side's kind of sitting back. Defending is always kind of advantageous compared to attacking. So watch those ships kind of smash themselves to pieces would be what would predict would happen up there. Now you do have broadside shot here. Might as well shoot that HE and then just switch over to AP. You did that right there, so that's good. And I would slow down. I mean, you do have that destroyer to your right, which you need to keep an eye on the map. Attempting to get that, though, is going to cause problems because you're going to push into a crossfire. So you could have just stopped, slowed down there, seeing if you could have taken a couple broadside shots at that. I think it was a Nuremberg or whatever it was, sailing across. Potentially get that ship off the map. They do have they're actually sending over a fair amount of their ships to support the weak side, so the normal dynamics that I'm talking about, strong side, weak side, aren't 100% there, but yeah, I would just park right here and see what kind of shots you get. Again, you do have to keep an eye on that destroyer. The danger is it'll swing around this island to your right here and torp you close range before you can do anything. So you might want to keep HE loaded for that purpose, but there are a lot of juicy broadside cruisers here. Again, I would just park. Pulling forward here, this is Um, no, yeah, this could potentially run into or create a situation for you because now you have 3 ships there that all have shots at your broadside, and looks like they're all focusing you now. And we do have the destroyer off to your right. If he turns around, it actually looks like your secondaries are going off towards him. He did land 1 shot there, but alright, I think what you're thinking of doing right now is trying to get rid of that destroyer, which is fine. That's, again, an admirable goal and something I would recommend. I just don't think pushing into the center, again, I'll call it a lake area, where you have all these ships that can shoot you in the broadside. This is not the way to go about doing it. And then you do have AP loaded. I mean, if you were planning on killing this destroyer, which I believe was probably your plan all along, I would just have the AP loaded here. Let's see if you can get a decent shot in on him. Oh, that's it. That's unfortunate. That's that German dispersion for you, but you did switch over to the HE now, which is good. Torp's coming in. Maybe just didn't see him because of all that smoke or whatever, but oh man, that sucks. I feel like you could have probably dodged that first one, and if you had dodged that first one, you probably would have missed both of those salvos. So now we're in a major problem. Yeah, just get out of there. I would turn your guns to the rear, though. You're still trying to focus this as Mayhem. If you get around this island, assuming you live, your secondaries will kill him. He used his torps, so we don't need to worry about that for the near future, but you might as well turn those guns around and start returning fire. Back some of these ships off that are shooting at you, or potentially even severely wound them. Again, I would just rely on the secondary to kill this Mayhem, assuming you can get out of this situation, which is getting stickier by the moment. So it looks like a friendly was able to kill that destroyer anyway. So now, I mean, obviously you hit the island, which is unfortunate, it happens. But if you can get out of here, I would just maybe shoot 1 more salvo and then let your guns go silent. It looks like those ships are right at the edge of your firing range, so they're probably outside your detection range, depending on how you have your ship set up. But again, maybe shoot 1 more here to see if you can sink that guy, and then kind of disengage and let the situation reset. You do have 2 fires. The damage comes down for another 10 seconds, so yeah, it's unfortunately, I get what you were trying to do going for that destroyer, but map awareness and just being aware that you had those 3 ships that it looked like they were doing something until you popped up in the middle there, and then they all focused on you, and absolutely, I mean, actually those guns didn't end up doing that much damage. I mean, it didn't help, but the torps ended up doing the majority, but those guns could have done a lot more damage than they ended up doing, so. But yeah, you've kind of stopped firing, disengaged, so that was the right play to do there. Just kind of let the situation reset, let that heal cool down occur, then pop that heal, kind of get back in the fight a little bit. And but yeah, now again, looking at the map, the west side's clear, so we got to assume those guys are about to cap or heading up that way. I would just go ahead and turn around and head towards the base. You're down quite a bit in ships. I wouldn't say the game's completely lost, but I would start pinging the base just to get the ideal in their head. Randoms usually aren't going to be responsive to actually trying to win the game or defending the base or anything like that. They can only see what's directly in front of them, and all they want to do is shoot ships and giggle and buff their Deweys. So, but you're turning around now, so that's good. I mean, again, the odds are rapidly diminishing. You might as well pop that heal now, get that going, and then get the second one up and ready to go, because you're going to need that. We can go ahead, and we do have a couple ships spotted there. You might as well just assume that entire western fleet is over here, so you're probably going to have a huge uphill fight. And just get that heal going. There's no reason to be sitting on it. Maybe you're just not paying attention to it, but, you know, at this point, if you're saving it because you're thinking I could get a little bit more light damage before I can, like, maximize this potential, there you go, use it. I mean, there's no real reason to not use it when you're low on health like that. So looks like they're focusing your support battleship here. Yeah, you got a couple guys that could potentially help you there. Again, they're not necessarily responsive. It looks like you got one way out to the east that's doing God knows what. Nagato, you do have your AP loaded. That's as long as these ships are broadside, I would just keep going for that. You can see there's 6.5, and if you look like you're aiming upper hull into superstructure, those are the kind of returns you can expect to get. And if you figure you're firing almost double as quickly as these targets, I mean, that's, you know, these are good shots. I mean, I'd be fine taking these. I would just keep the AP loaded for the rest of the game, frankly. You're doing a fine job getting resets, so, and picking targets to shoot at. That'd be real nice if that ends up smoking him. Alright, good job there. Again, you're doing a good job switching off who you're shooting, because each of these ships are accruing their own cache of capture points, so you want to keep switching off who you're targeting to reset that individual ship's capture points that they've gotten. If you keep shooting the same ship over and over again, you're going to have diminishing returns in terms of resetting the base, so you're doing fine there. At this point, it's not looking good. I'd probably just slow down. There's no point. The closer you get to these guys, the more trouble you're going to have angling against all of them. Your heel's back up. You might as well use that. Again, this is why you want, yeah. Not that it would have made a huge difference, but had you used it a little bit earlier, you would have been able to get some of that damage back there. So, uphill battle. Overall, in terms of how you're playing, fine. I think just that the crossing the Rubicon and moving into that lake was really the downfall of that match. So just better map awareness and being aware of exposing your side like that to multiple ships kind of forced your hand, and trying to kill the DD was fine, on paper, but the situation wasn't right to pursue that objective. So you did 70k in damage, more than your ship's HP, so you did your job in terms of that. You were going back to defend the base, so you're being a responsive teammate, actually trying to win the game. So all that stuff, I thought you did alright. I think just had you parked on the edge of that lake and tried to sink some of those ships before moving into that crossfire situation, things potentially could have turned out differently. You still were going to have a hard time just because your left side completely smashed themselves against the rocks. That, it's not good for that weak side to push that aggressively into that strong side. So they evaporated very quickly, and then, they had 4 ships pushing the base. That was going to happen regardless of what you did, so I don't know if you could have necessarily affected the outcome of the game, but staying alive with a lot more health would have given you a better chance. So something to think about. But that's it for this one, guys. Again, this is kind of a trial run of these replays, so let me know what you think of them. And if people like them and find them helpful, then we could potentially do more down the line. So if you did enjoy the video, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. There's a lot of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions for me, comments, leave them below. Thanks for the people for submitting the videos. I hope the advice I was able to give was helpful for you guys. Again, this is just a purely teaching thing. It's not to criticize them at all, so I hope everyone understands that. And we'll see you guys all later. Alright, peace.